Hi, my friends around the world and my friends in front of me on our Zoom like little Hollywood Squares Brady Bunch box meeting. We've got Cheryl in Australia and Denise in Saint Jerome, Quebec, and Stephanie in Toronto, and Rose. I can never remember. It's not Vancouver anymore. It's this other area. What's it called, Rose? Where you at?
Chilliwack.
Chilliwack. Chilliwack on unceded land by the
Of the Stolo Nation.
Stone Nation. I thought we all know whose land we're on in some way. Laura Spedetto, she's on Celtic land in the UK, and I'm in Los Angeles in well, I thought it was Chumash, but I don't really think it's Chumash anymore. But anyways, here we are today, the Palimpsest Live. We send our work around the world, and then we create over it, and we just get the things in the mail, and we create over it, and we send it to somebody else, and it's really exciting and really cool and different. This isn't an electronic process. This is a real live art making process that we're involved in. We bring in our intention, we bring in our spirit, we bring in ourselves, and we've been doing this now for a bit over a year, and we met online. Some of us have never met in person, but we're really friends. We are friends by this point, and this is just one of the most wonderful things that we found that we can do. I find that it inspires me to go back into the studio, not just because we're friends, but because we're all doing such interesting things. When we get these pieces, they're things that I would never have considered to like work into. You know, there's this guy on YouTube. He gets motel paintings and he paints them into, and they're very fun and they're very sweet. And he makes funny things. We're not making funny things. We're making meaningful things. And part of the palimpsest idea is that we can layer what we're doing. We can scrape out or paint over or merge our concepts and our ideas. So we're taking our inspirations and we're turning them to action. And that's kind of I don't know if it's one of the hardest things to do in life, but it certainly is a challenge to be able to be fearless enough to take our curiosity and our inspiration and turn it into an actionable thing. How do you folks do this? We've all had some kind of training. We've all had some kind of years of practice. How do you do it? What are you doing? Well, how does this show up for you in your studio?
Stephanie's like,
Who
I
are
don't
you
know.
talking to?
Who am I talking to? I'm talking to everybody. Talking to all of you.
It's
I thought
everybody.
maybe somebody. I thought you want me to call on you. Okay, I thought maybe somebody would just be like, oh yeah, that's the idea. But I'm going to
I
ask
do. I know.
Rose.
I know
Always had an idea.
exactly.
Yeah.
Honestly, when you asked the question, what popped into my mind and my soul was exactly how I felt as a child, sitting there and making mud pies with the like leaves and dirt and water and gravel in the driveway. And I used to spend a very happy hour making inventing birds' nests. I would make birds' nests when I was a kid.
Oh, that is
Nice.
I could be the bird, right? I would like make the nest myself. I mean, honestly, I think it's for me very often the same impulse is the being a maker, to make something with my hands.
Mhm.
There's a delight.
In a delight. It's almost like you haven't. This has been the through line through not just your career, your artistic career, but really through your whole life. I mean, since you were a little kid and you're handling stuff to make birds' nests, and now you make paintings. You could make a painting out of a bird's nest, literally, quite literally.
You
I
can
should
probably make
try
a
that.
business out of a
You should
painting.
try that.
I should try printing a bird's nest. Like, oh my gosh. Okay, now I'm gonna have my
gosh.
eye out for a discarded bird's nest.
Yeah.
There we
Turn
go.
inspiration to
Inspiration into
action.
action.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, Cheryl, you live in one of the more beautiful parts of the universe, and your slogan, motto, byline is love where you live, and you really see that in your work. And I imagine that that's part of your inspiration, how you're able to take it into action. It's this act of bringing that love out. But can you tell us
Yeah.
really what's going on behind the scenes there?
A lot of times what makes it easier to create is if you have a space. you know, and that's one thing. I love being outside, like most of us do, and there's a certain amount of peace that you find. I don't know, is it unconscious, that strange feeling that you feel? And I like that feeling that I feel, just like I'm a small part of something big. And so I just enjoy painting the natural landscape which is around me. So it's very easy to,
in addition to space, you also need purpose. Because for me, purpose is a driving force. I when I start a series of compositions, I just know that new work needs to be made. So I plan out that I'm going to start 3 or 4 new compositions. And that usually ends up being 6 or 7 when I'm done. But it starts from the purpose of needing to create new work. I'm such an organized painter, in a sense, that my process is so organized. It starts on the computer and it moves to the studio, and I move through this cycle of going from a digital thing to a physical thing to a finished thing, and then I just go back to the start, and I just know that it's time to go back to the start. And the nice thing about working this way is that the amount of intense concentration needed is at different levels, at different stages of my process, which means that I don't really run into things like artist block, because for me there's always a stage in the process that I can go to where not as much concentration is needed, or not as much artistic input is needed. So I can go to there and do that and recharge myself by just the action of working, because I find that very inspiring.
Yeah, that's a
Action through
very good
action.
point. I find that too in my process, because I mean, a big part of my process is the photography while I'm loving where I'm living, which is, you know, essentially that's how I kind of absorb the natural world around me through the camera lens. And then, like you say, Denise, when it's a different brain process, I guess, when you're editing your photos, then you know, then I use the photos as I edit them. They're imprinting in my brain, and that's when afterwards, when I do the print, then the image kind of imposes itself, because I have them in there, because it's a different layer of the process. So
Yeah.
I agree on that score. You know, like the artist block is lessened when you have so many different, like, then I have to do the part where I collect the leaves, and then I have to do the part where I concoct the chemistry, and there's all these different levels. So it kind of keeps it almost like keeps you on your toes in a way, I guess.
Yeah, and it also keeps you interested, because if you keep repeating the same thing over and over again, I mean, just repeating the process of painting, even though you're painting something different, you could get in sort of a rut that way. If you're like, oh, I'm gonna sit behind the easel again and do the same thing, and breaking it up that way, at least you get to physically do something different.
Yeah.
Now, Stephanie, your process seems to be I don't know if that's a straight line, but like your process is a painting process, and part of it looks like, from seeing your work, it looks like part of your process is an ideation, and you've done graphic design professionally for years before you moved into the fine art world. How does all of that combine for you to move yourself forward, taking your inspirations and moving them to action?
You're muted, Stephanie.
Thanks, Denise. So I get, you know, I kind of, what I do first is I sketch out my ideas. And then when I have something that I think I can run with, I mock it up in Photoshop or InDesign or whatever. And that's what I use as my reference photo. But then I'll also bring in other reference photos just to make sure I have the light, the light source showing and the shadows going the right way. but it's all quite, you know, and it's kind of a, uh-oh, is this going to work? I'm always like a little bit nervous about it.
Mm.
And then so after that, I basically think of my palette and I mix all my colors, um, and you know, transfer the image onto the canvas, and yeah, start painting. It is kind of a straight line for me. What's different, I guess, in physically what I do is, or for me, what's different, what gives me sort of different stages is the mixing of the palette colors,
Mm.
is the application of whatever medium I might want on my canvas to give it some texture, and the photoshopping, you know, all the ideation that goes behind the photo. So the idea, and then the photoshopping or in designing, you know, whatever you want to call it. That's also part of my process, and it's also creative.
Mm. I love that you're taking something that you found material and then you work it as Photoshop that then you use as your reference for painting. That's fascinating.
Hmm,
So you must be pretty good at
good.
Photoshop.
Well, yeah. Oh, and I also take my own photos. Like, depending on, like, for the fire woman back there,
Yeah.
I actually did a whole photo shoot of one of my students. I was tutoring students in French last summer, and this one student was a dancer, and I'm like, oh, can I please photograph you? I'd love to paint you. And so, you know, I got the mom's okay and all that stuff. And so the hair, I only kept her hair because she was doing this twirl kind of thing, and I caught it, and it was just, the hair looked great. So yeah, so I kept her hair. I replaced the face just because I knew I wanted a different face. So I do take my own pictures as well, and
Mm.
I actually try to take all my own. It doesn't always work that way, but I prefer using my own photography.
Mm. Oh, I just love how, we can do that, right? As artists, we can take things from all these different places and we we see it in our minds to be able to push them together. It's never existed before in this way. Now, Laura, you have a, I'm going to say a fascination. It's beyond fascination, but I think that's sort of the fastest word I can grasp. A fascination with women's explorations in the world, and one of the things you've told us is the dynamic of light and dark, and how do you let your fascination, like, how do you get that on the canvas? Because it certainly shows up when you finish.
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know.
That's an honest answer.
I
It just
I
comes.
I was thinking about inspiration, how I can grab inspiration in my work, because I'm fascinating, yeah, to paint mostly women and faces. I painted also a figure about women, but I paint also landscape or other things. So I thought what was inspiration, how I translate inspiration, and also to this question, I don't know, because inspiration comes when I don't know, and it's not always when I'm painting. As I said last week, sometimes is while I'm driving, I'm walking, I'm cleaning, and it's difficult to grab these ideas that come to mind. And and in that moment, I would like to have my work finished, but it's not possible. So what sometimes it's frustrating is that for me, is that I cannot translate immediately what come to my mind. It's like to grab a thought, and I'm worried that this will disappear or dissolve or change, because our thought just continuously change. From the beginning of this discussion, I changed my mind many times because I was answering to everybody. So I said, oh, so our mind is always working, and and translating the inspiration into action. I'm usually I found myself that my mind is really difficult to keep focused for a long time to something. So I have various things that I do. I write, I paint, I prepare the canvas, or whatever, or I experiment. I like to experiment. So I try to every day to work on something that let my mind to express herself. Unfortunately, I don't have only one way, so sometimes it's a mess.
So I wonder, Lara, do you have a way that you capture those ideas when they come to you while you're working or doing something else? Do you have a system for that?
It's not really the system that I'm trying to make in action, put in action, is planning, because my mind is too flawless, like a variable. I don't know how the right term. And when I have an idea, I like to write it down. I love to write, so or make some sketch. But mostly of the time, the sketch are not what I will do on the painting. It's just some roughly sketch that can remind me what I want. And most of the time, I change my mind also when I arrive to paint on the
I'm
canvas.
exactly the same. My sketchbook
Me
is
too.
it's mostly written ideas and then a quick like scribble just to be able to spark my mind the idea that I had at that moment.
Yeah. How about you, Ross?
Yes, Ross.
Taking action. Well, I'm inspired by many things. I'm curious about a lot of things, and I get tons of ideas, and then I make little teeny, and when I say teeny, I mean teeny notes. Sometimes they're that big with tons of information in them with a super sharp pencil or something. And I love working on the backs of envelopes and that kind of stuff, like really not precious kind of stuff. And I also facilitate a art process. So that's really informed taking action, even without inspiration, but just like a bias towards action. And I think if I were to sum it up in any kind of way, it might, there's the uncertainty of creating that in itself is both completely freaking terrifying and the most exhilarating thing that I could possibly do. I don't like to climb mountains. That's not something I'm going to do, or like swim in the deep end, or like that. But to bare my soul on a canvas or a piece of paper, I'm down for that. So I think that kind of helps drive what it is I'm attempting to do, whatever that might be. And I'm also really in love with figurative work. I mean, I enjoy looking at abstract stuff, but it's not that interesting for me to do. And the challenge of drawing human figures is, I mean, it's hard. And so maybe it's like 1 out of 100 for me comes out okay, not even good. And I just have to be okay with that. And that's part of the uncertainty too. So talk about the process of actually like making those drawings and how the sketches might change. I don't know if you guys ever encountered this. There's this optical illusion, you've probably seen it before, where the mask first looks like it's inside the mask, and then if you look at it a different way, it's really outside the mask. Well, you can do the same thing with your silhouettes in your design too. It's like, your figure-ground relationships change. And I just am so in love with seeing that kind of, I mean, to me, that's true alchemy, to see how all of that can kind of come out. You make a twist of the brush or a twist of the pencil, or, a smear or something, like dirty it up, or it's like, and then how all that's like, oh, wait, I'm going to go, it's almost like beyond choice, but to go in this other direction now. And it's just fascinating, like beyond any kinds of concept.
Yeah, I love that concept that you're heading in this direction. but there's always something in your peripheral.
Yeah.
And I love
Yeah.
that. And I have to
Yeah.
head this way because I really want to catch this, but I don't know it yet until I head this way. Another thing that you just talked
good point.
about, I have been doing some writing on the telescope inside, and I was trying to capture that concept of how we zoom in and how we change our focus and how we focus on focus, and how, and I've been writing a little bit about that. And I've called it the telescope within because I didn't want to scare people of how we zoom in and how we zoom out, how we focus, how we blur, how we multi-image, how we look at negative shapes and we reverse them.
Yeah,
Wow.
we had to study that when I
Very
was
cool.
studying graphic design back in the 80s. It was the psychology of how we see. We had to like literally
Interesting.
study that. And I mean, I was obsessed with working with delineated line when I was younger because of exactly that, where the way delineated line can work where it looks this way or this way. Like if you kind of go with the flow, it's so fascinating.
Oh, wow, what a great discussion. And I think this is probably something that each of us said that we could revisit for an entire half hour at least for the next time. And we'll bring beer and wine and champagne and other things. I'm in
I like
California,
it.
so we
Edibles.
but we also have an unveiling today. And I think it's Rose. Do you have the painting today to unveil?
No, we have a video.
No, it's a bit.
We have a video.
Video.
Yes.
A video.
Have an
And it's
unveiling video.
What's the wonderful letter that we're unveiling today? Painting.
It's painting D, the Beetle painting.
D, the Beetle painting. Oh,
Yes.
when you say D, doesn't it just elicit so many great ideas?
I know.
So when you see this painting, everybody, maybe you've got some ideas for titles. Send them to us at Palimpsest Live Art and Beyond, and we'll take a look at them. Here's the video.
Here we go.
Beautiful little water droplet.
Yeah, Julie's. I forgot who did the water drop.
That was Julie.
Yeah.
Oh, what roses and blossoms.
Oh, wow.
Sweet. Yay.
Great.
Hey.
All of us. You guys made it sparkle at the end. It had like
It
had like
does.
kind of
Lara
like
had made it
light,
all like
kind of
gold.
like
No,
sparkling
I'm
off
here.
of it.
Oh, you have it.
I have it here.
Okay, I'm
Cool.
gonna pin you. Wait a sec.
Oh, pretty.
Oh,
I
it's so
pretty.
great.
swear, it
It's
just came to life with the
it's
light, the way you guys added the.
really great. I
And
love it.
I love the fact that you made those 7
Yeah,
spots of gold representing each
yeah,
of us. That's such a
yeah.
Mm.
That was
heartfelt
great.
addition to the piece.
Yes, agree.
Yeah, but it also helps bring in the light that's making the bird
It
and the
does.
beetle iridescent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mm,
It's
mm.
so
Yeah.
perfect. It's
it
like,
works
because
so
oh
all of those
yes,
elements play with the light, right? So there's just
yeah,
yeah.
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 And
I
it
love it.
increases the interest in that part of the painting, so your eye really flows so seamlessly through the whole thing, and
Yeah.
it looks
And
like
then that
looks
water
like
droplet just kind of like
yeah,
pulls it up and out again.
pulls it up
It's
and
so
out.
fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
This
Thanks,
is really one of
Julie.
my favorites, I have to
yeah,
say.
me
Yeah,
too.
me too.
I know we're not supposed to play favorites, but I really am gravitating to this
It is
one.
one
Oh, you just like the letter D, Denise.
That's probably it. Yeah, I'm biased.
That's to be part of the game. The title has to start. The first letter of the title has to be from the painting D. So it would have to be like D.
That makes it even more challenging.
We'll just
Now
call the
only
painting
poets
Denise,
may
even though Rose
apply.
started.
Oh boy.
Wow.
Wow, that's really exciting.
Well, as the person who started that painting, I can't believe it. Like, it wasn't just one of us who made that painting. It just, I don't
Mm.
know, it seems to come together
Yeah, it
like
looks really
many of
cohesive.
the others. It just
Mhm.
Yeah.
coalesced in the
Yeah.
end. It, yeah, I love the sparkle everybody added to it. It's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
cool.
Nice.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
You know, there's that surrealist picture game, Max Ernst picture game. Rose, you're going to know the name of this, right? Um, um, M- Exquisite Corpse, right? Where somebody,
Yes.
it's a similar kind of thing where you take either the story or the picture that somebody's working on and do something else to it, and their whole purpose is that really it doesn't need to make sense. It's all from the unconscious. It's all part of the expanding universe of psychological,
The collective
the
unconscious
collective
is part of
unconscious,
the
the Jungian kind of
collective
stuff.
unconscious. Yeah.
And this piece to me really illustrates how we're really coming from a different kind of a place, even though it's a similar kind of process, that we're talking about bringing it together, bringing the
Yeah.
world together, bringing ourselves in all our parts of the world together. Do you
Yeah, it's
any
really,
of
it's
you have any
deep.
thoughts about that? It
Yeah,
feels
it's
deep.
deep. And I feel it does feel deep. And it's because it does look and feel like it's one person who actually created it. It's almost like it's almost like the connection that we all have is is embedded in that painting. You know what I mean?
It's
Mhm.
And
made
that's probably
manifest.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I think it's true of all our paintings, and especially of that one though. There's just because it looks like
Yeah.
just only like the paintings where it looks like really only one person created it. It's like it's our greater
Although the
consciousness.
pond painting
Yes,
does
that
have
one
a
too.
similar effect, I
Yeah,
find.
I feel that one. Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
And I guess
Yeah,
in a
no,
way,
it's
there's similar subject matter in that they're talking about the natural world. There's
sure.
a
Yeah.
sense of the surface that's given. I mean,
Mhm.
they're at different planes, right? Like
Yeah.
when Cheryl started the background, it's like the plane of a person looking at water. In this case, it's when Rose started, it's a very flat picture plane, right? Like a sort of tableau kind of situation. And yet they're really different and beautiful. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
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 I guess I wouldn't expect that beauty is going to come out of 6 or 7 people working on the same piece
Right.
Or the,
Well,
the
that
or
was
the
also not our
cohesion.
intention,
or the
right?
cohesion. What's that, Denise?
We
Yes.
never really had the intention of having to create something beautiful. This was all
Right?
just a
No.
big experiment to see what would
Yeah.
come out, but we had never had the intention. And I think this is also sort of valid for the discussion topic that we had before, that um, it is better to just go in and create something and then be surprised by its outcome than
Mm.
really fretting about needing to create something that is perfect, because you might get so blocked up into that fear that you might not make it perfect that you
Mhm.
won't create anything at all.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then
Any
you
like
cannot
that's what
embrace
perfectionism is,
process.
right?
Then
Mhm.
you
That's
can't
right.
embrace the process, and it's
Yeah.
within the process of creating that the transcendent experience happens, both on an individual level and then as we're coming together.
Yeah.
It's the letting go, right?
And the
Yeah.
fact that we didn't set out to create something beautiful is not, it's not that I'm saying that we were looking to create something bad, because of course
No.
we're all artists. We all aim to create something good and visually pleasing. But in this case, I feel that our intention mostly was to see where this project would go, and we would all just start something and just give over to
I
the
think
project.
I think that the most part is done from the intention, because it's a meaningful. As you said, we don't want to do something bad. We are not looking for something particularly nice, but it's the meaning of what we add. And this
Absolutely.
helped me a lot to in this project, because painting on my own many times, I'm thinking. So as I said, the inspiration arrives, so I try to do something, and has to write an intention for someone else. It's so important. So I discover also what is inside myself too,
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's one of the parts that I love the most. And I think it's for this reason also that it's so cohesive, the work,
Yeah.
because there's a meaning.
But interestingly enough, we sort of began with a question mark about how our different artistic egos would mesh within the project.
Mm.
And it's almost like the pieces themselves are manifesting an egolessness in a sense, you know,
Yeah.
like it's taken on a collective ego as opposed to individual.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I got goosebumps again. I love that. Yeah. Sorry, no, but every now and then, like when someone says something really cool, it's yeah,
That's when you
great.
know That's when you know you're hitting it, right? Those goosebump moments.
Yeah.
Maybe we have more
Yeah.
goosebump moments coming up in our future. This isn't a podcast. What is this called? our future
What the hell is
stream,
this?
live
Yeah,
stream
Project.
show.
and
Yeah.
project. And we'll be here again next week, around the world at 12:30, 3 o'clock, 8 o'clock, next morning at I don't know, Australia time. and we hope
7:30. 7:30
7:30.
Sydney time the next day.
7:30 Sydney. And then we're also recorded, so then you can tune in on our YouTube channel and stuff like that. So come back and join us. We're the International Art Alliance, and this is the Palimpsest Project. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
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 See you. Bye bye.